Shall I start now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
I would like to welcome the participants for today's fifth session on Chapter 3, Bhagavad Gita, entitled Karma Yoga. We'll recite the chapter and then we will do the discussion.
अथ तृतीयोऽध्यायः कर्मयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच जायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव। व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच लोकेऽस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ। ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनाम्। न कर्मणामनारम्भान् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति। न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत्। कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः। कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते। यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगमसक्तः स विशिष्यते। नियतं कुरु कर्मत्वं कर्म ज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः। शरीरयात्रापि च तेन प्रसिद्ध्येत कर्मणः। यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः। तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर। सह यज्ञाः प्रजाः सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वमेषवोऽस्त्विष्टकामधुक्। देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः। परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ। इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देव दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः। तैर्दत्तानप्रदायैभ्यो यो भुङ्क्तेस्तेन एव सः। यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः। भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात्। अन्नाद्भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्नसम्भवः। यज्ञाद्भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्मसमुद्भवः। कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षरसमुद्भवम्। तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्। एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयतीह यः। अघायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति। यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यादात्मतृप्तश्च मानवः। आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते। नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो नाकृतेनेह कश्चन। न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः। तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर। असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः। कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः। लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि। यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तदेवेतरो जनः। स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते। न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन। नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि। यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः। मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः। उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोका न कुर्यां कर्म चेदहम् शङ्करस्य च कर्ता स्यामुपहन्यामिमाः प्रजाः सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस्तथा सक्तश्चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम् न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेदज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनाम् जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन् प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहङ्कारविमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मविभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत् मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः ये मे मतमिदं नित्यमनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढास्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः सदृशं चेष्टते स्वास्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्नवशमागच्छेत् तौ ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः अर्जुन उवाच अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयं पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वाष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः श्रीभगवानुवाच काम एष क्रोध एष रजो गुणसमुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विद्येन विह वैरिणम् धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निर्यथादर्शो मलेन च यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भस्तथा तेनेदमावृतम् आवृतम् ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पूरेणानलेन च इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिर्नस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते एतैर्विमोहयत्येष ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम् तस्मात् त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभ पाप्मानं प्रजहिह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम् इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुरिन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिर्यो बुद्धेः परतस्तु सः एवं बुद्धेः परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मयोगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः।
Hare Krishna, we welcome you again for this fifth session of the course on life lessons from Bhagavad Gita. So we will be doing chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Before we begin with the invocation, Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakkharunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sagana Dalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bhandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Can you see my screen and hear me properly?
Yes, Prabhuji, both are clear.
Are you able to see the presentation view?
No, Prabhuji, it was like not the maximized one. Prabhuji, you can present it and then Alt tab and come to Zoom and then share that presented slide. No, Prabhuji, it's still the smaller version. Prabhuji, there is a button coming that resume the slide. So
Still again?
Prabhuji, you can stop sharing screen. Then I will tell you can do like that, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Now you go to the presentation and make it full screen.
Yes.
And now you press Alt tab. It will show you various different windows. Alt and tab.
Okay.
You go to Zoom, Prabhuji, in that Alt tab.
Okay, we'll continue like this.
Prabhuji, if you want, can I share?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Please. Is it visible, Prabhuji?
Yes. Go next. So this chapter entitled Karma Yoga, it begins with Arjuna's confusion about whether he should renounce work. That is, should he avoid work or should he do his work? Because in the previous chapter, Krishna explained about acting with knowledge or intelligence. So he thought if he has to be intelligent, then based on the reasonings he gave earlier as to why he should not fight, it is better that he not take part in this war because for the reasons cited earlier. So then Krishna talks about Nishkama Karma Yoga, how it is better for Arjuna to do action rather than to artificially renounce work in the name of intelligence. So Krishna talks about two types of people. One is the Jnani Yogi who renounce work, but they are with the knowledge. They are able to, just like as you grow in life, there are some works you need not do, which was absolutely essential in a lower stage. And the other is Karma Yogi who do the prescribed work. In other words, as per the Varnashrama system, according to our nature and abilities, there is some work prescribed for us. The purpose is to gradually elevate us till the time when we can avoid certain activities. But premature renunciation of work is not recommended. Why? Because inaction is unnatural. For a person who is active, suddenly you make him inactive. It is an uncomfortable situation for him. So when he is not active, naturally he tends to do something which he should not do. There are many instances where people were not doing their prescribed duty and they get distracted and they end up doing something totally wrong. So Krishna talks about a pretender who externally renounces work, just like a person who is in the hospital because of some addictive habits. And when the doctor says you should not do this and this, time being he is avoiding that works. But always he's thinking when I will get cured and I can resume those bad activities. So although one person may be externally very renounced, like for example, a monkey seems to be very renounced, is leading a very simple life, but all the time it is doing mischief only. So internally he is dwelling on the sense objects. Although he may be closing his eyes, there's some famous saying that three monkeys are there, one monkey is closing its eyes, ears, and mouth. But although we may do that, internally the senses, subtle senses are active and the mind is active. So the moment we open our eyes, ears, or mouth, immediately the senses will plunge into action. So therefore Krishna says, better perform your prescribed work, but do it as a offering to Vishnu. Same activity remains the same, but it depends on for whom you are doing that activity. Just like the same example I gave, depending on for whom you are working, the same work you may be doing for different companies. In one company, you may get a better salary. So better perform prescribed work of Vishnu and avoid bondage. So what is the bondage? Bondage is to the three modes of material nature. The next 10 to 16 verses, Krishna is gradually teaching about the gradation from Karma Kanda and Karma Yoga. Karma Kanda means there are some prescriptions in the Vedas or scriptures which tell us, promises many benefits by doing which activity, what benefit you can get. Of course, this can find in the people in the modern world also. People are promising so many benefits. If you do this, you get this. You invest here, you get this much profit. So all the time, people are promising some results. But better than that is karma yoga. In other words, if you set a goal in life and then do your activities, that is much better than doing activities whimsically, even though they may promise some good results. So attaining happiness by sacrifice. So here sacrifice means we are doing activities for a higher purpose. Normally people think sacrifice means I have to lose something. Yes, you lose something, but you gain also in the process. So attaining happiness by sacrifice, yajna, and cooperation between men and demigods. Who are demigods? They are superior living entities because they have followed the path of dharma, and then as a consequence, they have attained a superior position. When we cooperate with them, then we can be happy in this world because they have better resources than us. And one should eat food which is first offered in sacrifice. What does it mean? Food means we daily consume many things, not only through eating, but many ways we are consuming things in this world. But these are possible because some higher authority has produced it for us. We have not ourselves grown the fruits or flowers or vegetables, but we still consume it. So as gratitude, we have to offer them in sacrifice, which means we should share the benefits with others. Otherwise, we are a thief. Thief means you are trying to enjoy everything for yourself without sharing the benefit with others, although you are depending on others for whatever you are getting. So this cycle of sacrifice is essential. Just like we pay taxes to the government and the government does some beneficial activity for us. Otherwise, life becomes sinful without sacrifice. So, in other words, we are encroaching upon others' properties. So then Krishna talks about Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is, okay, one person is doing activities just only for enjoyment. Another person is, yes, interested in enjoyment, but he is working for a higher purpose simultaneously. And then, okay, you are satisfied, you are doing the right work. Then what about others in society? You should also train them to perfect their lives. Having attained perfection, you also, if you are qualified as a PhD, you can also train others to become a PhD. Similarly, the person, Nishkama Karma Yogi, he is doing activities to set an example for others. Because we are living in the society, we have to depend on others, no matter how superior we may be. So if our juniors are also not up to the standard, we cannot be happy. So a self-realized soul need not work, he works as an obligation with the detachment. Well, what is his obligation? His obligation is to do good to others. At the same time, he is not attached to his work. For example, there are people with a non-profit organizations, which means they are not doing it for any profit. It's only with the motive of doing good to others because they have earned sufficiently in life. So Krishna also quotes some examples like Janaka, the father of Mother Sita, and even Lord Krishna himself. Although he has no obligations to perform any duty, we see in the life of Lord Krishna himself, he set an ideal example of a householder as a Kshatriya and many other dharmas. So, so he is setting an example for common people to follow because that is the nature of everyone. We try to follow the someone who's a leader in society. Now, a Karma Yogi works with detachment and does not disturb at the same time, we cannot expect everyone to be like us. Even though we are doing without attachment to the duty, there will always be some section of people who have to be motivated by the results only. So, because these people, they think I am the doer, I have to enjoy. The next verse 30 to 32, Krishna says that working for Krishna and the results of all. So, who is the highest authority? Of course, you may work for demigods, but demigods also are living entities. So they have their own limitations. Going up the ladder, if you work at the ultimate person, Lord Krishna, that is the most beneficial, not only for you, for everyone others in society. Just like you pour water to the root of a tree or the food, offer the food to the stomach, and the benefit goes to the entire body, the entire tree. If you offer every work you do for Krishna's pleasure, then all the demigods, all the living entities are satisfied. But if you don't want to follow this instruction, then what will be the consequences is explained also by Krishna. So one should do one's duty according to one's nature for purification. So what is the purpose of these prescribed duties of Varnashrama? That is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Grihastha, Brahmachari, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. It is to gradually elevate from the lower modes of nature, that is Tamoguna to Rajoguna to Sattoguna. And better to be situated in one's prescribed duty than artificially imitating something for which you are not qualified or it is not necessary. So then the conclusion of this chapter, Arjuna inquires about what induces us to act sinfully. So then Krishna explains that it is lust, which is the greatest enemy. And subsequently, he explains how to overcome this lust, because insatiable lust causes material entanglement. When you are lusty means you want to enjoy something which does not belong to you or you cannot really enjoy. Then you artificially promote greed and then also anger. So this covers the knowledge and influences the mind, intelligence, and the senses. So in order to overcome this lust, Krishna says that you have to begin with the senses, regulate the senses, and then gradually control the mind, then the intelligence, and this way you can overcome lust. So this is a summary of this chapter. Krishna it begins with Arjuna's confusion about whether he should renounce activity. Actually, renunciation means you cannot renounce work. We have to do work. But we have to renounce the attachment to the result, thinking that I am the only doer. That conception should be given up. But Arjuna is thinking that I can intelligently avoid certain works if I know beforehand what will be the consequences. Then Krishna tells Arjuna that even though if he is qualified for, he is qualified for renunciation, he should still do Nishkama Karma Yoga to set an example for others. There are not ideal people all along, so there will always be people who need guidance. So for their benefit, you should need to set an example. Then Krishna talks about how lust is the formidable enemy. What prevents us from acting according to our nature is lust. And therefore, so in the previous chapter, Krishna gave a prelude to the Bhagavad Gita by presenting different topics such as Sankhya, or analytical study of the difference between the soul and the body, and Karma Kanda, or how we have to work in a particular way to get a particular result. And then he talked about acting with an intelligence, and then he talked about acting for a higher purpose, or Karma Yoga, and so on, and Bhakti Yoga also. But it was present in an unsystematic manner. Just like when you begin a course, you are given an overview of the course, but without giving the details. But subsequently, you go into all the systematic study. So from this chapter, he gives a more organized outline of these Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So in this chapter, Krishna describes about Nishkama Karma. Kama means desire, Nishkama means without desire, and your karma means action, and that action is for a higher purpose. So how to do action for a higher purpose at the same time without being motivated by unnecessary desires, or the great art of doing prescribed duties. Because, so how do I know what is Nishkama Karma Yoga? There are some prescriptions. Just like we go to the doctor, he gives a prescription. We don't know which medicine to take, which diet to follow, but he prescribes the diet and the medicine or the test or whatever. So likewise, scriptures are prescribing us some duties by which we can perform this Nishkama Karma Yoga. What if we don't do Nishkama Karma? That is already explained in the second chapter. So how it should be done? As an offering to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Why? Because the Lord himself has set up this system of Varnashrama for our own benefit. And if we follow that, then without personal desire and thus avoiding the bondage to work. The system has been designed by Lord Krishna that if you follow it, you can keep doing your activity at the same time not affected. Just like a doctor is there, daily is cutting open the patients with a knife and all the scissors or whatever. But it is for the benefit of the patient because he is following the medical guidelines or the authorized protocols. Whereas a thief is also using the same knife and cutting open people, but it is for his own personal desire. Now, Krishna also describes the discrimination necessary for a person desiring to conquer over lust. So, to prevent this deviation from this Nishkama Karma Yoga, the obstacle is lust. When our desires take precedence over the work, then it becomes an obstacle. Just like a person commits a crime. More than the crime, the judge wants to know the motivation behind the crime and accordingly is given the punishment. So we need discrimination to conquer this secondary desires. If not, what will happen? These desires will lead to anger. And anger is destructive both for the person and for others. So the word karma could also mean action as well as reaction, because the reaction is already present when the action is done. Just like a seed is there. The moment the seed is there, it's only a question of time before the seed fructifies and grows into a tree and produces a fruit. Similarly, the moment we do an action by body, mind, and words, immediately the reaction is waiting to manifest. That's why in the third law of motion is there, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So like that, for an action, fate or destiny, depending on the context. So this karma can mean action, it can mean reaction, or it can mean destiny and fate. Now, sometimes it could also mean a fruitive action, which means any action which is going to necessarily produce a reaction. Supposing you are carrying out a chemical reaction, you are expecting the desired product, but sometimes the byproduct, unnecessary byproduct also happens. So, which is intended to, so now Krishna told Arjuna to keep all abominable actions, avaram karma. Avaram karma means actions which have to be avoided and far away. How to avoid these unwanted actions? By buddhi yoga or intelligent, smart work. Just like if you are doing a reaction and unwanted product is coming, you have to carry out the reaction in a different way so that that unnecessary product doesn't form. Similarly, he meant to establish the superiority of Nishkama Karma Yoga over Karma Kanda. There are some people, as we said, they are doing activity just for enjoying the result. But there are some people who are also doing activity, they're also getting the result, but their motivation is different. Now, Arjuna thought that fighting is an abominable action for reasons he already cited, why fighting should not be done in this particular context. And it's better, it's intelligent to avoid that fighting based on the reasons we said. So he thought, but Krishna's urging him to fight seemed contradictory to Arjuna. So he asked Krishna about this. Because Krishna is giving him knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna is thinking, with this knowledge, I should learn how to avoid certain works. But that is not the purpose of Lord Krishna. Because work cannot be avoided, rather the quality of the work has to be changed. Now Arjuna's confusion is whether he should renounce or action. Normally renunciation means people think avoiding certain things or giving up certain things. But real renunciation means to accept something and then only you can reject the lower things. So now Arjuna asked Krishna, "Oh Janardana." Janardana means one who is the well-wisher of all living entities. So Keshava, he is addressing Krishna by these names to highlight that he wants the best advice from Krishna. If you think that intelligence, buddhi is better than action, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? I am bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Because as we said, Krishna had given many instructions simultaneously in the second chapter. So now Arjuna is confused which one to follow. Just like if you give many choices, all choices seem to be the right answer. So as far as Arjuna is concerned, Krishna had given him many instructions. Now which one to follow is not clear. Therefore, please tell me decisively which is most beneficial for me. All those instructions are correct, but in which context you have to apply which instruction, that is more important. Just like a same example, if I go to medical shop, all medicines are bona fide, but which one to follow and what dosage, all that has to be prescribed by someone. Otherwise, we may get reverse benefit. Janardana means one who is the object of entreaty for those desiring their ultimate benefit. So, to whom should we go if we want to know what is our ultimate benefit? And that is only one, and that is Krishna. Why? Because he is also known as Keshava. What does it mean? That he is the source and controller of both Brahma and Shiva. Brahma is the creator and Shiva is the destroyer. They also take direction from Krishna. So such a Krishna can be Janardana also, because he is the one who can clarify all our doubts. Therefore, Arjuna requested Krishna, whose instructions cannot be transgressed. Even Brahma and Shiva follow Krishna's instructions. So what to speak about us? And in response to Arjuna's question whether to work or renounce work, Krishna will now describe Nishkama Karma Yoga, working with knowledge and detachment. So this is very important, working with knowledge and detachment. So detachment means what? Any action you do is going to produce a reaction. That is for fact. At the same time, we have to continue to do work. Normally, when we do an action and we get a reaction, we get discouraged and we may not feel like doing further work. But detachment means even whatever be the result of an action, you continue to perform your duty. Then that is possible only with knowledge. And before that, he points out the defect in Arjuna's desire to renounce his prescribed duty to fight. Before giving him higher knowledge, Krishna wants to first, just like you want to solve a problem, first you have to understand the problem. So now Krishna points out in this section on why it is better for Arjuna to perform activity than artificially avoid action. Just like some people, they want to do higher studies and they want to avoid going to work. They think if I have to work, although I may get good salary, I have to put so much effort and there will be so many problems. So better I go for higher studies. So this is a common thing we find. But even after doing higher studies, they lose motivation or they are not able to anymore come back to the working stream. So therefore, better is you do some work and get some experience and then go for higher studies. So something similar like that. So liberation or bondage is not determined by one's activities, but by one's consciousness in performing those activities. So the attitude with which you do your action, that is one which causes the attachment or detachment. Thus, renunciation is not actually giving up action, but giving up the attachment to the results of actions. What is attachment to the results of action? As I said earlier, you are so obsessed with the results that you don't want to do any further action, or you are very selective about the action you will do. So renunciation of activities without necessary knowledge. So if you don't have the proper knowledge or the intelligence or training, then you will not be able to discriminate as to when, what to do or what not to do. And also it requires purification. Just like a person has to digest some food, although the food is very nutritious, if he doesn't do proper exercise, he will not be able to digest it. Similarly, we have need purification, which will lead to the and renunciation of activities without necessary knowledge and purification will lead to destruction on the path of spiritual advancement. Just like a doctor is there, he has to undergo some practice. If he thinks that directly I will do an operation without proper practice, it is not going to help him. Similarly, some activities I have done just for our purification or clarification. Without prescribed duties, an unfulfilled desire for activity will lead to the premature renunciation to sinful action. There are many instances like Vishwamitra Muni. He wanted to do penance and he gave up all the comforts of a kingdom because he was originally a king. But then he got agitated and then he came back to sense gratification because he didn't follow the process. The prescribed duties are for gradual purification. And if you don't follow the process, the desires will overcome our intelligence. And there are two types of people. One is based on their faith or nishta. Faith, nishta means the sincerity or steadiness. Then Krishna tells Arjuna, sinless one. Aga means sin, anaga means sinless. In other words, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna not to go on the wrong path. I have spoken to this earlier. Although Krishna has described people of two types of nishta, the Karma Yogis who perform prescribed work, people are sincere in different ways. Some people are sincere to the work. So that is known as the Karma Yogis. And the Jnani Yogis who renounce work. Some people are so intelligent that they need not do certain works. But they are ultimately one in the sense that they aspire for the same goal. One person is doing work and one person is not doing certain works, but their goal is one in the sense that they want to progress in life. So, depending on where you are situated on the ladder, progressive ladder of this will be more clear in the fifth chapter, where it's talking about action in Krishna consciousness after attaining transcendental knowledge. So both these yogas are interdependent. In other words, sometimes you have to do the work only. Sometimes you have to cultivate knowledge, and sometimes after that you have to come back to work. So this way, progressively, they have to go hand in hand. Action and knowledge have to go hand in hand. Philosophy and religion. Philosophy means it is a theoretical. Religion means it should be practical. So theory and practice should go hand in hand. So that's why religion without philosophy is sentiment. If someone is doing something, practices, but he doesn't know why he is doing or how it should be done or what should be done, then it becomes sentiment. And philosophy without religion is speculation. Some people are only speculative. They don't do action. So philosophy without religion. Religion means without any practices. You are simply theoretical. Then that's a speculation. The next text is that one with an impure heart should perform prescribed duties for purification of the heart. So here heart means consciousness. Whatever action we do by body, mind and words, it affects our consciousness. So sometimes we are taking medicine. Sometimes we are taking a regular diet. Sometimes we are taking a patient diet. So according to the situation, we have to do certain activities. So this is explained in the next 13 verses. How important it is to do prescribed duty. In other words, you cannot choose your duties whimsically. People say karmanya vadikaraste, Krishna says, so I have to just do my duty and not expect any results. So that is not the message of Bhagavad Gita. So that is clarified here, that the duties which you are doing should be prescribed by someone, just as you take the medicine under prescription. Similarly, the duties think we have to do should also be prescribed by the scriptures, authorities, and saintly people. Otherwise, what happens? It leads to premature renunciation. Artificially, you avoid certain works. And therefore, that has to be discouraged. By merely abstaining from prescribed action, karma, one cannot achieve purity or freedom from reaction. There are some people who think, okay, I will not go to work. Why? Because I don't like the work. I want a better salary. So many reasons they cite. Then after searching for the ideal job they want, finally they settle with a job which is worse than the first one. So like that, by merely abstaining from prescribed action, one cannot achieve purity or freedom from reaction. By renunciation of activities, so one has to change his attitude to the action. More than the action, the attitude with which you are doing the action, that is more important. So by renunciation of activities, one cannot attain perfection or liberation. Artificially avoiding work will not help us to progress in life. So what is the purification? To purify the hearts of materialistic people, those who are interested in short-term benefits, they have to change their consciousness. Therefore, prescribed duties are laid down in the scriptures. One can accept a renounced order of life, sannyasa, after being purified by the discharge of the such duties. After you have gone through sufficient training, supposing you are in the army or air force or navy, they subject you to some training, and after some time you need not undergo that training. So therefore, but if you without training you enter into the army or air force, okay, under normal conditions it will be fine, but in a adverse situation like a war, you won't know how to handle that situation because you don't have the proper training. So these prescribed duties are to gradually train us. If a person with impure heart means improper consciousness, renounces prescribed activities, taking in Vedic Karma Kanda, Vedic Karma Sannyasa. There are different types of sannyasa. One type of sannyasa is a person who just avoids work. And the other sannyasi is who's working for Krishna. So one who takes artificially renounced work, he reverts to material action. For such a person, cannot remain inactive. There are many instances we have seen suddenly one person becomes sannyasi. A former chief minister of Andhra Pradesh was there. He took up sannyas and suddenly he married again. So why? Because this artificial karma sannyasa. So then Krishna says, why it is unnatural? Because inaction is unnatural. Na hi kaschit khanamapi dhatu tishtat akarmakrit. No one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. The body is always acting. Even if you are sleeping, sometimes the mind is active. So this is not possible. Karyate avashak karma. Avashak karma means they are acting helplessly. Everyone is forced to act helplessly. Just like you are sitting in a moving vehicle, you have to go along with the momentum of the vehicle. You cannot abruptly stop it. So, sarva prakriti jair gune. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired. Already, supposing you have already boarded the aircraft. Suddenly, you cannot stop the aircraft. You have to go up, spend some time, then only gradually you can bring it down. Having acquired a body, you cannot go against the nature of the body or the abilities of the body. Because the body and mind is controlled by the three modes. Can you go to the next slide? Okay. Now, but we sometimes see some sannyasis who do not engage any of their senses and sometimes even speak philosophy. What about them? There are some people, they're very good at giving lectures, pravachan. They may speak very nice, eloquent speeches, but they cannot guide you in practical life. Neither they are setting a good example for others by their behavior. So such is known as a pretender or mithyachara. Is it going? So he restrains his senses from action but dwells on the sense objects in his mind. What are the sense objects? The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Even if you close your eyes, you are still meditating on what you saw, heard, smell, taste. So he certainly deludes himself. He is artificially karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasasmaran indriyatan vimudata mityachara sa uchyate. So, in contrast to such a renunciant or sannyasi, a householder, grihastha, who performs scriptural actions, karma yoga, without longing for results of one's action is better. Instead of artificially renouncing, it is better to be situated in a grihastha ashrama where you have all the comforts and the responsibilities and you execute them even if it's imperfect. Better to artificially renounce your responsibilities. A sincere person, on the other hand, so what is important is that our sincerity, this due diligence we have to do, has to be humble. And a sincere person, on the other hand, tries to control the active senses by the mind and performs karma yoga with his senses. So whatever facilities, resources are available with that, it is better to do something with them rather than trying to aim for something higher for which we are not qualified. He is by far superior to pretender who adopts show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. Just to put on a show or live for the public impression. Some people live for others rather than for their, according to their consciousness or the conscience. So do your prescribed duty, that is niyatam karma. Earlier Krishna talked about avaram karma or abominable activities. Here is talking about niyatam karma. Niyatam karma means duties which are meant to regulate you. Yes, you have your desires, attachments, but you regulate them so that gradually you can overcome the desires naturally and the attachments. It is better than renunciation of action, karma sannyasa. One cannot even maintain one's body without work. So why you cannot renounce action? Because the moment you acquired a body, it has to be maintained properly. To maintain the body, we just as we do some exercise. Similarly, to maintain the body, there are some duties which we have to perform, no matter how elevated we may be. So, but by performing actions, one may become, the Arjuna is asking, but by performing actions, one may become bound up by those activities. So, we may ask that, okay, you are telling me to do this work, but I have to spend some time, energy, and money on that. Is it really necessary? Therefore, Krishna says, work for Vishnu and avoid bondage. Yes, there are some works you cannot avoid, but if you do those works for the higher purpose, just like you're studying a course, the course is for 6 semesters, but all the time you're not studying. Some time is allocated for playing and other recreation. But as long as you're studying, that recreation is also beneficial for your studies. Similarly, along when you're doing worshipping of Vishnu and at the same time you're doing the prescribed duties, as long as the worship of Vishnu element is there, those other activities also are beneficial and they will not cause bondage. Yajñātāt karmanonyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Without performing actions as a sacrifice for Vishnu. In other words, whatever work you are doing, it should be under the guidance of a superior authority or for the satisfaction of a superior authority. So without performing action as a sacrifice for Vishnu, people are bound by their actions. So the action is not the problem. For whom you are doing, how you are doing, why you are doing, that is most important. So do your prescribed duty for his satisfaction. In other words, whatever duties you are prescribed, it should be under the guidance of a authority, superior authority, or the superior directions. Thus, you will remain free from bondage. Just like the medical man, doctor is doing surgery under the superior authority, whereas the murderer is doing an activity for his own purpose. Mukta Sangaha. Sangaha means the 3 modes. In this verse could also mean being detached from the results of actions. So again, we are saying detached from the results of action means you should be able to utilize the results of any action to promote further action. Offering prescribed duties, dharma to Lord Vishnu or Krishna without personal desire is called yajna or sacrifice. So sacrifice means you are giving up something to get a higher thing. So the Vedas enjoin yajna vai Vishnu. So whatever that is sacrifice should be meant for pleasing Vishnu. Vishnu means he is in the Vishuddha Sattva. He is beyond the 3 modes. So although we are in the 3 modes, if we do those activities in a certain way, they can please a person who is beyond the 3 modes, that is Vishnu. The same purpose is served when one performs prescribed yajnas or directly serves Vishnu or Krishna. Whether you are a devotee of Lord or whether you are performing a prescribed duties, if it is under direction of the Lord, then both are the same. So Krishna thus suggested that working for the Lord without desire for results, Karma Yoga, is better for Arjuna than premature renunciation of work. Just like some people want to avoid work, but okay, you do a bad work, but at least with that salary, if you maintain some family, that is better than artificially renouncing the work. So Jnana Yoga, now Krishna tells Arjuna, but if you are not free from desire for the results of actions, then you should still perform actions with the desire, karma kanda, rather than giving up actions completely. So if someone is saying, no, I cannot do detached work, I have a tendency to enjoy the result, no problem. Still, you go one step down. If you are not able to go one step ahead, at least you go one step down, be firmly situated, and then come back to the. By satisfying one's desires in a religious way, those who are attached will be purified. So if you are not able to do work in a detached way, at least you do work as per the prescription of the scriptures. Yes, you want to enjoy, no problem. You work in a legal way and earn your money. Next, Krishna talks about how to progress from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. In other words, instead of working for ourselves, how to go to a higher stage where we start working for a superior authority. What is the benefit of working for a superior authority? It frees us from bondage. So in this section, Lord Krishna has designed, says that how he has designed this material world to encourage yajna or sacrifice. In other words, this world has been designed such a way that we mutually benefit each other. In other words, you give up some, just like you're going to the shop, you're giving your current money and he is giving you something. So this is how this world is designed, that you give something and take something from others. Give and take policy, they say. So he does this by making material advancement dependent upon sacrifice. So in this world, always you have to give something and then only you can get something. So by worshipping the Lord for material well-being, one becomes purified. Okay, you want to enjoy something, you want to get something, at least you come to the God for this purpose. Just like the Christians, they say, oh God, give us our daily bread. So that is good. At least they are expressing their gratitude to the Lord. The Lord becomes pleased by this worship and he bestows whatever they need. Although they have the desire, because they are trying to fulfill the desire by approaching the right person, it is possible that gradually they become purified of such desires. So how do you attain happiness? By yajna. What is the benefit of sacrifice? You can get happiness. So long ago, Vishnu, the Lord of all creatures, Prajapati, created population along with sacrifices and said, may you get all your desirable things by the yajna to live happily and achieve liberation. So why this Lord has created this material world? Many times people ask this question. If you have to suffer in this world, why did he create in the first place? No, he did not create this world for our suffering. Rather, he has created this world for our enjoyment, provided we follow the system. Supposing I give you a laptop, just like I was struggling with the presentation in the beginning, that is because I was not adept at it. So you cannot blame the system for that. The problem is with me because I didn't know how to operate it. It was a struggle for me. But if I had known how to use it, then it would have been to my advantage. Similarly, the Lord has created this world not to put us into suffering, rather for our enjoyment, provided we follow the prescribed method. Now, what is the key to success in this world? Cooperation between men and demigods. There always be someone superior to you and inferior to you. But if you learn to cooperate and coordinate with others, they are known as the demigods. If you please other person, that person will please you. The demigods being blessed by sacrifices will supply all necessities to human beings. Just like we see many countries, one country has surplus of some product and some country has one surplus of some raw materials. But if they mutually try to help each other, then there's good harmony. Thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. But what about those who don't want to follow this system? Just like the government has established the taxation policy so that the government can do good to not only you, but to the entire society. And if someone is evading the taxes, he is said to be a thief. But one who enjoys such gifts like food and that comes through rain, etc., without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Because the demigods are providing us some higher things, they are engaged in some activities and they may not have certain things. But we are engaged in lower activities and we may get something which the demigods even doesn't have, or the demigods may have something which we don't have because we are not doing the activity of the demigods. So always this prevails in society, that I am doing some activity and I am getting some result, but I am not doing some activity and I don't get some result. Whereas other person is doing the activity which I am not doing and he is getting some result. So the only way out is to cooperate. But if we choose to not cooperate, then we are considered a thief or offender. So Krishna says, Yajnashishnashina santo muchante sarva kilbishai Bunjate te tvagam papa ye pachanti atma karana. That is, those devotees who food remnants of sacrifice offered to Vishnu are released from all kinds of sin. So we are getting all the resources from God, and He has designed a system. And if you follow the system, then it is like accepting prasada. Prasada means you are eating food only, but that food you are giving as a gratitude to God, and then you accept it. Then, just like when you pay the taxes to the government, then you are free to enjoy the income, whatever you have. Otherwise, if you evade the tax after some point, whatever you hold, the income also will have to give up. So others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. In other words, you keep on gathering resources and not distribute the benefits to others. Then, just like if you overeat something, although it is very nutritious food and you keep on overeating it, then it will cause indigestion. So, this cycle of sacrifice is annad bhavati parjanyo, parjanyad anna sambhavaha, yajnad bhavati parjanya yajna karma samadbhavaha, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवम तस्मात् सर्व गतम ब्रह्म नित्यम यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम. All living bodies subsist on food grains. We are always, although we are producing so many industrial products, but if there is no food, we cannot survive. So all living beings subsist on food grains. Even if a person is a non-vegetarian, he is depending on the animal which is eating grains. So all beings subsist on food grains. And how are these grains are produced? From rains. And how are rains produced? By performance of yajna, sacrifice. Because the demigods are in charge of the rains. And unless you offer these grains in sacrifice, they will not produce the rains. Because they know how to convert the grains into rains. We don't know the science. Just like you're giving the scrap material to the iron industry, the iron industry is producing you some iron metal. So like this, when we offer these grains, these demigods know the ability, just like you see E is equal to mc squared, someone can convert mass into energy. Similarly, these grains, they can convert into rains, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. What type of sacrifice has to be done? As prescribed for us by the superior authorities. Prescribed duties are mentioned in the Vedas. Where do you find information about these prescribed duties? That is mentioned in the Vedas. Why do I have to follow the Vedas? Because Vedas are directly manifested from the Lord. How? Through Brahma. Consequently, the all-pervading Supreme Lord is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. In other words, the moment you are doing a sacrifice, the Lord is witnessing it, and He will ensure that you get the result. So this is the cycle of sacrifice. Now, if you don't follow the sacrificial system, it leads to sinful life. In other words, we are going against our nature or against the prescription. Just like a patient sometimes doesn't want to follow the prescription. He is only harming himself and others. So, my dear Arjuna, human being who does not follow the cycle of sacrifice established by the Vedas certainly leads a futile life full of sin. Agha ayuhu. Ayuhu means life. Agha means sinful life. In other words, he is disturbing the whole system, living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Indriya aramaha. Ramaha means satisfaction. Indriya means senses. In other words, he is only self-interested. He is not interested in the welfare of the society. Krishna explained so far that if one desires, then he may work with desire in a religious way. Now he will explain that even if one has no desire, he should still work to set an example for others. Now onwards, Krishna is talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga. First he talked about Karma Kanda, then about Sakama Karma Yoga, now about Nishkama Karma Yoga. The previous section described Indriya Rama person, and the next section will describe Atma Rama or Atma Tripta person. Indriya Rama means someone who is doing for his own satisfaction. And Atma Rama means he is doing work for satisfaction of the Lord. So Nishkama Karma Yoga to set the right example. So one who is in full knowledge doesn't have material desires or attachment. So he does not need to do prescribed duties for his satisfaction. Still, he performs obligatory duties prescribed by the scripture, setting the example for those who are less knowledgeable. Okay, you have attained perfection. Is that enough? You should help others also to attain perfection. Hmm? Just like if you are on the ocean and you have come out of the ocean, you should help those people who are struggling in the ocean or rescue them. A self-realized soul need not work, yet he works. A self-realized person has no duty. In other words, he has no he's not obliged to do that. Supposing a person is doing some voluntary service or social service, he has no obligation. He's not paid for that. But he does as a responsible member of society. For one who takes pleasure in the self, Atma Rama, he's fully satisfied. He has earned all the money he wants in this world. So who is satisfied in the self, Atma Triptaha, fully satisfied in himself alone, Atma Triptaha. For him, there is no obligation to do any prescribed actions. He has no taste for material pleasures. He has no purpose or gain in performing such actions. Sometimes we doubt a person whether he is doing really for the benefit of others or he has some hidden motive. Supposing a person says, I am going to offer you some free service, immediately we'll doubt him. What is his intention? Is he really want to do free service or he's going to charge us later? So he has no reason for not performing such works. If these are the conditions, then we can understand that he is doing it not for himself but for others. And he has no need to depend on any living being or demigods. He is fully self-sufficient. Still, he wants to do work, but that means he is doing it for others. One who has spiritual intelligence doesn't perform prescribed actions with the desires, but does them without attachment to results to set the right example for others. So that is if we have been benefited from others, we should also try to benefit someone who requires that benefit. Now, obligatory work with the detachment. So what is earlier the obligation was for my own benefit. Now the obligation is to do the work, but for others' benefit. Tasmat asaktam satatam karyam karma samachara asakto yacharam karma param apnoti purushaha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of actions, one should act as a matter of duty. In other words, you're doing the action, you're going to get the result, but instead of enjoying it for yourself, you share the benefits with others. By working dutifully with the detachment, one can attain liberation or the supreme law. The Lord is very pleased. So far, this person was working for himself. Now he is working for others' benefit, and the Lord is very pleased with that because Lord himself is doing that. Although Lord doesn't have to work for us, he is working for us for our benefit. Arjuna wonders if there are any examples of persons who attain God consciousness by Karma Yoga. Thus, Krishna next cites the examples of other warriors who attain success through action. How to set example for others? Kings such as Janaka attained perfection, samsiddhim, solely by performance of prescribed duties, although they are self-realized and beyond doing any obligatory work. They are already perfect, but they want to become more and more perfect and help others who are less perfect. Therefore, just for the sake of teaching people in general, you should perform your work. Why? Because common men follow great person. Yat yat acharati shreshtas tat tat eveta rojana sayat pramanam kurute dhokas tat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, the world pursues. A leader has to teach the public by his own practical behavior. If he himself is not setting the proper example, teaching by precept, we say. Even Krishna engages in work to set an example because he is the one who has created all this material world. So he also shows us by his own example. Now, Krishna says, if I ever fail to engage carefully in performing prescribed duties, all men would certainly follow my path. All these worlds would be put to ruination because Arjuna asked in the beginning, will not this, if we kill our elders, will all these family traditions be lost and the whole community projects will be destroyed? Yes, Krishna says, therefore I also do the prescribed duty. I don't avoid duties. Rather, if I don't fight this war, there will be more disturbance. You are thinking by if I kill these people, there will be disturbance. But I am saying if you don't kill these people, there will be more disturbance. I would be the cause for creating unwanted population. I would thereby destroy the peace of all living. Even the Lord is obliged to do work. Otherwise, people will imitate him and create disturbance. Lawmaker is beyond the law. Still, although Lord Krishna teaches us by performing prescribed duties, we also see that he sometimes acts independent of the law. Why? To please his devotees. Sometimes God did not follow all these prescribed rules. There are exceptions to every rule. So he is eligible to be an exception to some of the rules which we necessarily have to follow. Such actions, however, are not to be performed by those inferior to him. One should be qualified to break the law also. So, for example, the king, for example, or the prime minister is, supposing he is going on the road, he is allowed to break the traffic rules because he is going for a higher purpose. Now, following verses imitating Lord Krishna lifted Govardhana hill, Lord Shiva drank poison. Great personalities are unaffected by their unconventional activities. But an ordinary human being cannot do such thing. It is best, therefore, not to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. So one man's food can be another man's poison. So we cannot imitate others. We should be qualified to follow them. Because even Lord Krishna performs prescribed duties. A person who is established in knowledge, jnana, should also work to set an example. One can avoid sinful reactions such a work by doing it with detachment. Just like the doctor is also doing daily is cutting open the patient, but with the detachment. In other words, he is not doing it for his benefit. Of course, he may get some benefit, but ultimately the purpose is to save the patient. Attached worker and detached worker are karma kandi and karma yogi. That will be clarified now. So one is acting without attachment, set an example. As ignorant work with attachment to results, the wise man similarly acts, but without attachment for the sake of teaching people on the leading people on the right path. Don't at the same time we cannot disturb those people who are attached to the results of their activity. You cannot blame them. See, I am working without any motive, but you are working with a motive. So like that, you cannot downgrade such people. Na buddhi vedam janayet ajnanam karma sanyina joshayet sarva karmani vidwan yukta samacharan. Here is a vidwan. So ignorant people cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Lord Krishna advises not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees understand the Lord's purpose and approach ignorant men to try to engage them in acts of Krishna consciousness, which are most beneficial for all. In other words, there are some people who are attached to the work. They cannot give up that work or the result. So rather than discouraging them from doing some work, at least you engage them in devotional service. Parallelly, let them do both. Just like some child is doing mischief, at the same time you encourage him to do something good. So hopefully, gradually he will give up that mischief also. So that is the supreme purity of bhakta. Jnana is dependent on purity of heart, and purity of heart is dependent on action without desire. But bhakti is by nature very strong and is not dependent on the purity of the heart. So to go progressively from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga is very difficult. They have to go through, one should be qualified to go to the next step. But if one is doing Bhakti Yoga, even if one is not pure at heart, gradually he becomes purified. Because just like it goes step by step through the staircase. Or if you have the elevator system, then you can easily go different floors. So this bhakti process compared to a process which can like an elevator, and this other yoga process are like going through the staircase. So it is possible to inspire people with faith in bhakti, then one can disturb the minds there. So by themselves, the people don't want to be disturbed from what they are doing. But if you attract them to bhakti, then they don't mind being disturbed. Supposing a person is doing some work very busily and you have to disturb him, then you tell him, see, this is the benefit. Then he agrees, okay, no problem. I will, because he sees the benefit. So even if bhakti is some kind of a disturbance, if it is for the benefit of that person, he will willingly accept it. Now, what is the problem with the ignorant people? Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashaha ahangara vimodatma kartaham iti manyate. Why people are suffering the consequences of their actions? Because they think that they are the doer. And therefore, they think I will be the enjoyer. But the fact is, they are not the only doer, and therefore they cannot be the only enjoyer. All activities are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature, but the spirit soul, bewildered by false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities. The three modes are not in our control. They are under the control of the Supreme Lord. Because they are working under the control of the Supreme Lord, we are able to do something. So we cannot claim to be the only doer. So who is the person in knowledge? So he is able to distinguish between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. In other words, how to identify who is the superior authority, under whose direction we should perform this work. Go to the next section. What is working for Krishna and following him? Mayi sarvani karmani sanyas yatma chetasa nirashir nirashi yudyasva vigata jvara. Offering all your activities unto me with full knowledge and dependence on me, without personal desires, free from bondage, free from lethargy, fight. The verse has got truncated. So Krishna is telling how to work for him. That is, work with full knowledge. In other words, even to do devotion, we have to have proper knowledge. Otherwise, you will grudge doing devotion. And what should you do? Depend on Krishna. We should know that if I work for Krishna, I will not be the loser. And so we need not have to encourage any personal desires. At the same time, we should be enthusiastic to work for Krishna. Then go to the next one. So what is the benefit of working for Krishna? Then you become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. And if you disregard the teachings of Krishna, then we will be deluded, befooled, and ruined. We cause our own ruination. So, why we should work according to one's nature? Because we have deep-rooted condition. Our conditioning is very deep. Over many lifetimes, we become conditioned to the three modes. So, better to work within the three modes. So karma and jnana will not help us to overcome the three modes by themselves. Along with bhakti only, any work or knowledge can help us elevate the three modes. So the knowledge and karma is strengthened through bhakti. In other words, just doing activity or cultivating knowledge is not sufficient. We should do action and cultivate knowledge under the guidance of a superior, and the superior authority is Lord Krishna himself. So this gradual performance, there are principles to regulate raga and attachment and dvesha. So we are attached to some activities because we want to enjoy the results, and we avoid certain activities because it makes an obstacle for our enjoyment. So one should not fall under the control of such attachment and aversion. Rather than, one should continue with his prescribed duties. And at the same time, Krishna says, Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat swanishtitat swadharme nidanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. Here Krishna says, do not imitate others. It's far better to perform one's own duties even in a faulty way than doing another's duty perfectly. Even death in the course of doing one's duty is beneficial, but to follow another's path is dangerous. Just like the doctor is prescribing different methods and different diet and different treatment. So you cannot just do whatever you want whimsically. Same example, one man's food is another man's poison. So the purpose of this prescribed duty is for our purification. What is purifying for us may be contaminating for someone. So in the next section, Arjuna is asking Krishna a very important question as to why one is impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly as if by force. Although we know what is right and wrong, sometimes we still end up doing the wrong thing. Just like Duryodhana was lamenting that I know what is right and wrong, but still I do wrong thing. Why is it like that? So then Krishna tells that it is lust. Kamayesha, Krodesha, Rajo, Guna, Samudbhava, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidyihenam, Iha Vairinam. As long as you have some unfulfilled desires, they will dominate over your intelligence. Lust, which is born of passion, which is unsatisfied, turn into anger. Mode of, in other words, as long as you're associating with the three lower modes, this lust, anger, greed, they become prominent, although it is alien to our nature. Just like if a person is not taking care of his health, the disease, the germs will become more strong. It is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world that instigates one to commit sin. So if you don't act in a free, natural way, the unnatural tendencies will come up. Just like you don't sow the seeds and grow them properly, the unwanted weeds will increase. So if you don't engage in your prescribed duties, then these base desires like lust, anger, greed will become prominent. Going to the next verse, Krishna explains how this lust conquers our intelligence mind. By the analogy is given, just like as fire is covered by smoke, that is compared to the just a fire is there and smoke is coming, you fan it, then the smoke will subside and fire will increase. So that is compared to the human life. In human life, the lust, covering of lust is relatively less. Another analogy is mirror covered by dust. If the mirror is covered by dust, then you have to take a cloth and wipe out the dust. That is compared to the animals. And then you have the embryo in the womb. The embryo in the womb is so covered up that it cannot see any light outside. That is compared to the trees and lower species. So this lust covers according to the degree of lust, a person acquires different bodies. So then what is the solution? First we have to detect where is this lust situated. So lust, Krishna says, it is in the mind, intelligence, and the senses. So if you have to overcome lust, we have to purify this mind, intelligence, and senses. And how do we purify it? Krishna concludes by saying, Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya param manaha manasastu parabuddhi yo buddhe paratastuha. Suppose you're going to fight a battle, you have to have a hierarchy. There's commander, then there's a second level, then the soldiers. Like that, Krishna is explaining the hierarchy of control. That is, the senses are superior to dull matter, mind is superior to senses, intelligence is higher than the mind, and soul is higher than the intelligence. So if the soul has to be in a proper consciousness, then we have to begin from the bottom. We have to fix the problem at the bottom, and that is the senses. So in other words, if you have to control the mind and intelligence, that's much more difficult than controlling the senses. In other words, you have to engage the senses. And how to engage the senses? That you need higher knowledge, and that knowledge will be given in the next chapter. Hare Krishna. So we'll take some questions. You can stop sharing. Okay. If you want to unmute and ask also, our program host will enable you.
Yes, Prabhuji, now they can unmute and.
Yes. You can unmute Kirti Bhatia.
Mataji, unmute. Mataji, you can unmute. I'm requesting.
Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes,
Yes.
Mataji.
Okay, प्रभु जी मुझे डिफरेंशिएट करके बताइए ये निष्काम कर्म योगा and sakam karma yoga.
So the gradation is first is karma, which means we do action and we get a reaction. Okay. But sometimes the reaction is not to our liking. So then we start inquiring, why is it I did like this, thinking I will get this, but I got this, I'm suffering now. So therefore we have karma kanda. Karma kanda means the Vedas are giving some prescription that if you do this, you will get this result. So if you know that if I do like this, I'll get the result, you will do only in certain ways. So like that we have in our material society also. Society prescribe, they are giving some prescription. You do like this, you will get this profit. So that is one, that is known as Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means a section of knowledge. What that section of knowledge tells, that if you do this work, you get this result. That is Karma Kanda. But then you are getting some results which you don't like. Supposing you eat some food, it's very delicious, you eat it, but then it creates some health issue. So then, like that, by doing this action and reaction, after some time you start wondering, is there a better way of doing work? And that's why we have this karma yoga, which means you are doing activity and also you want to enjoy the result, but at the same time you want to progress under the superior guidance. So that is Sakama Karma Yoga. You are attached to the result, you want to enjoy, but at the same time you are regulated by a superior authority, just like the child wants to play at home. But then after some stage, the parents want to send the child to the school because yes, his playing is good, but all play and no study makes a you won't grow. So likewise, we want to be regulated. So that Karma Yoga process is, yes, you are doing the action with the desire to enjoy the result. At the same time, you are working under a superior authority or some guidance or scripture. So that is Karma Yoga. That is Sakama Karma Yoga. But then, as we explained in the middle of this chapter, that yes, you are doing work for your enjoying and also under superior authority. But at one point, you realize that no matter how much I do work for my pleasure, I am not satisfied. So that is because you are not uh, working for a higher purpose. So then it becomes Nishkama Karma Yoga, where you learn that I don't enjoy just by trying to satisfy myself, but I should live for others. That's what you see people in the Janaloka, higher planets. They are those people who wanted to live for others. But then you get more satisfaction than trying to live for yourself. So that examples Krishna is telling, like Janaka and all these kings, they achieved perfection maybe by going through Sakama Karma Yoga, but eventually they came to a stage when they started working for others. That is Nishkama Karma Yoga. But it still falls short of Bhakti Yoga, which we'll talk about in the next chapter. Is that somewhat clear? So here the main element is Nishkama. Kama means the desire. The first, Sakama Karma Yoga means you are desiring for your own benefit. Nishkama Karma means, yes, you are desiring, but the desire is for others' benefit. That is the difference between Sakama Karma and Nishkama Karma. But ultimately, when you start desiring for God, then it becomes Bhakti Yoga.
Prabhuji, then what is the difference between Karma Kand and Sakam Karma Yoga?
Yeah, as
Are
I
they not
said,
the same?
yeah, Karma Kanda is simply you decide for yourself what is good and bad. You don't follow any authority. You make your own choices. I like this, I don't like this. I like this because I get this result. I don't like this because I don't get this result. Like you're freelance, you're practicing something. But Karma Yoga means, yes, you accept an authority. You want to enjoy, but under some authority, because you want to progress through the three modes. The Karma Kanda will take you up and down. You go to higher planets, enjoy, suffer, come down, you suffer. This go up and down will happen. But when you do Karma Yoga, then you are enjoying, but on the progressive forward. You learn, get some knowledge also along with doing your activity.
Okay, so there's a question from Khushbu Goel. According to Vedas, who all are exempt from doing Ekadashi fast?
The Ekadasi means actually 11th day of the waning and waxing moon. On that particular day, the moon's influence on the body and mind is very strong. So it can disturb our mental functions. Therefore, it's recommended to avoid overeating on that day, especially eating grains. So, but still for diseased people, children below a certain age, or very old people, they are exempted from following Ekadasi. Any other? Okay.
One minute, something just one. Just one. My mind, sir, my mind is continuously changing. I am unable to have clarity in following a specific path. One day my mind says this thing is right, while on the other day, mind says the same thing which I later thought is right as wrong. How to overcome this?
Yes, we saw in the last but one words of this chapter, the hierarchy has been given. The senses, indriyani paranyah, indriyabhya paramana. So that is the dull matter. We are always in contact with dull matter. If you see around us, there is dull matter. Unconscious matter is around us. So our senses are constantly in touch with dull matter. That is, we see non-living things, we hear, smell, taste, touch. Predominantly, it's with dull matter. But superior to the senses is the mind. Mind is a subtle sense. And superior to the mind is the intelligence. And superior to intelligence is the ego, and superior to the ego is the consciousness. So this is the hierarchy. So if you follow this hierarchy properly, then the lower things are able to be controlled by the higher thing. So right now our senses are controlling our mind, and mind is controlling our intelligence, and intelligence is controlling our ego, and ego is dominating our consciousness. So then we become influenced by the three modes of material nature, and then we face these dualities in life, up and down. So therefore, we have to begin with engaging our senses. We need to engage our senses. We cannot directly go to mind control. Mind control is not possible immediately. So therefore, the best way to control our senses is the hearing process. Just like a snake is there, it is ready to bite a person. But that snake charmer, he plays on his organ, and somehow the snake becomes subdued. So like that, for us also, to control the senses, it's very most important thing is to control the hearing. We have to hear, and what do we hear? We have to hear the Lord's name. That's why we chant the Mahamantra. So nobody is going to speak all the time for our benefit. So we only have to chant the Lord's name and hear it through our ear, or we recite the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, or we hear some pravachan or discourses. So when we start hearing, then one by one all the senses become controlled. When the senses are controlled means they should engage properly. You should see something, you should hear something, smell, taste. If you engage the senses, then the mind, which is superior to the senses, becomes somewhat controlled. So how to engage the senses? That you have to get directions. So one of the best ways to control the senses is starting with the tongue. Tongue means you can chant the Lord's name or taste Krishna Prasadam, or you can hear the Lord's name or hear the lectures about the Lord. So this is the beginning. Then gradually, one by one, other senses will be controlled, and then the mind will be controlled. Once the mind is controlled, then the intelligence will function properly.
Sir,
Yes.
what do you mean by Krishna Prasadam, sir?
As we saw during the class also, we are taking offering to Vishnu. That is, Krishna says later on, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yomeya Bhaktya Prayachiti. That is the fruit, flower, leaf, and water. Krishna is saying, I am giving you all these resources for you to be happy. As a token of love, you offer it to me. You remember me. Prasada means you are remembering the Lord. The Lord is only expecting you to remember Him while you are enjoying the results, whatever He has provided us. The best way to remember Him is by chanting the Lord's name. So when we are offering food to the Lord, we have to chant certain mantras. We have to offer tulsi leaf. And there's a process we follow. So when we, just like you go to Tirupati, you're getting a Tirupati laddu as a prasadam. What it means that you're paying money. With that money, they are making some laddus and they are offering it to the Lord. They're expressing their gratitude to God. God is only, by mind itself, you can be pleased. Normally, if you want to please someone, if you say, I'll please you in your mind, you'll be satisfied. It's not possible. You have to physically please Him. But in the case of God, you can please Him even mentally. And that mental pleasing of the Lord can happen through chanting the Lord's names or prayers. So when we are, whatever activity we are doing, when we remember the Lord while doing that activity, then that is known as prasada. He is pleased, he is reciprocating. Immediately he remembers, oh, this person is doing it for me. He's remembering me while doing or eating or sleeping or whatever. Then he reciprocates with us, and that reciprocation known as prasada or mercy. So one way prasada means the food, but also prasada can come in other form also.
Okay, sir.
So thank you all sorry for the delay because I had some struggle in the beginning. I hope this is not repeated next time. Thank you again. You can join us on the daily sessions. The same third chapter, we'll do it in an elaborate way. Not elaborate. We'll give you more time to digest it and understand and ask some questions during the days, Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. English and Hindi sessions parallelly. You can join that. Otherwise, you can join us straight away next Saturday for the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Transcendental Knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sir.
Adit Pawan, you can end the session.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.